Now you guys know me. I like to start off my videos with a bit of an icebreaker, you know, a joke, something off topic, and then we ease our way into what we're talking about for the video. In this video, I'd like to issue a warning. Please don't go down to the comment section of this video. I guarantee there are The Last of Us Part 2 spoilers, and if you're still trying to go in blind, which it's gonna be hard to do that now because, you know, I got spoiled off a Bethesda tweet. Go figure. But if you're trying to avoid those types of spoilers, comment sections are a definite no-no. In today's video, we will not be talking about what the spoilers are, but I wanted to take a break from the Bethesda content and talk about a game series that I am very much passionate about. I loved the original The Last of Us. It really wasn't even the world, although I am a sucker for post-apocalyptic stuff. It was more so the characters and how they evolved over time. Of course, the relationship between Joel and Ellie, the beginning of the story, which was such a tearjerker, and just the overall masterful execution of some big moments throughout made it such a top-tier game for me. So of course, like many others, I was very much looking forward to The Last of Us Part 2. And since these leaks have come out and people have started to discuss the story, I don't think I've seen anyone say anything positive about what's come of the story for The Last of Us Part 2, which is extremely unfortunate. And while I have seen the major plot points listed down, I still want to wait, play the game, see it for myself, because I believe that on paper, even the original Last of Us wouldn't have sounded that great. But it wasn't until you saw how everything was executed that it really came together, and it was an excellent story to be a part of. So I'm gonna remain patient with The Last of Us Part 2. I'm still interested in playing it, reviewing it, but I also understand why there are a lot of people who are very disappointed with the plot decisions. So let's get into how this arc began. All it started with was a humble delay due to our situation with the world. Sony said SIE has made the difficult decision to delay the launch of The Last of Us Part 2 and Marvel's Iron Man VR. Oh man, no one's talking about Iron Man VR. That's, man, what a shame. But this delay was until further notice. Logistically, the global crisis is preventing us from providing the launch experience our players deserve. This came after Jason Schreier, formerly of Kotaku, released a big piece about how there was a serious degree of crunch culture happening within the studio. We've heard it before with Rockstar. There were insane hours, people were struggling with their mental health. It's become unnecessarily normal within our industry, but we also know that Naughty Dog likes to hire people who are essentially perfectionists. And being a perfectionist can be contagious. You start to feel insecure about your own work. Am I doing enough? Am I putting in enough effort? And then eventually that culture spreads throughout the entire studio and you got everyone working insane hours or staying way over time. But this delay was also made not only in what seemed to be response to this article, but also because, according to Jason Schreier once more, this was all due to the financial situation, that physical sales would have been severely impacted if they went ahead with their original launch date. Fast forward to just yesterday, and it was an absolute whirlwind of leaks. We had leaks for The Last of Us Part 2. There was a very small Cyberpunk 2077 leak, and there was a supposed Elder Scrolls 6 leak, which we'll get into tomorrow, because that's stupid. But anyway, the leak for The Last of Us Part 2 was nothing close to small. Allegedly, we don't have direct proof of this, but allegedly this was a disgruntled employee who was upset about the not only status of the studio, but also something with pay being held back, and leaked the entire game. Now for some folks, he is a hero because he had saved them $60 based off what they saw on the game and they wouldn't have been happy, and I understand that perspective. But for some folks as well, even if you don't like what you saw, it's still absolutely tarnished years of hard work that other game developers put into this product. Even if you hate what you saw about The Last of Us Part 2, I just can't help but put myself in the shoes of the developer. You've been working on this for years and years and years and years. You're pretty much at the finish line here, and the leak that is so gigantic happens just shy of 2 months before release. It's not even like, oh, we're a week away, bury your head for a week. You can't just bury your head from the internet for almost 2 months. It's gonna be extremely hard to avoid these gigantic leaks that are everywhere, whether it's memes, it's tweets, it's in articles, it's in comment sections. It's just incredibly hard to avoid. Can't you hear that? My dogs are up in arms about this. They don't like at all what's going on. This happens every video. I sit here, I start recording, get into a roll. they bark. So as these leaks went on, people were wondering, what's Naughty Dog gonna do? What's PlayStation going to do? What's the response here? PlayStation responded first. They did not address any of the leaks in this entire PlayStation blog, but just said, as we begin to see an ease in the global distribution environment, I'm pleased to confirm that The Last of Us Part 2 will arrive on June 19th, and Ghost of Tsushima will follow on July 17th. I was personally in the camp of being more excited for The Last of Us than Ghost because I've played like what feels like a million games set in Japan as of late. Whether it's something more weeb like Persona 5, or we're playing Nioh, or Sekiro, like these ninja style games, they just feel very familiar now, so I was more excited for The Last of Us Part 2. And I do imagine that PlayStation didn't address the leak because here is Naughty Dog doing it. We know the last few days have been incredibly difficult for you. We feel the same. It's disappointing to see the release and sharing of pre-release footage from development. Do your best to avoid spoilers, and we ask that you don't spoil it for others. The Last of Us Part 2 will be in your hands soon. No matter what you see in here, the final experience will be worth it. What was disappointing, I guess, about this was for the people who really didn't like what they saw. It wasn't like Naughty Dog said something similar to what CD Projekt Red said a while back when they got threatened with leaks, where they said, yeah, it's old footage, we don't care, you can go ahead and put it out there. And they kind of like gaslit the person who threatened them, and it just backfired on the original threat that was submitted. Whereas with The Last of Us Part 2 leaks, they've come out and Naughty Dog's pretty much saying like, yeah, they're real, do your best to avoid them. And I think that really solidified where a lot of people were coming from with their anger and their disappointment with some of the story choices made for The Last of Us Part 2. I guess the way I look at it is very rarely do I play a game in reverse, where I know some of the major beats before launch and then you go in, you play it, and sort of see how those story points unfold beforehand, just knowing them. I mean, you could argue that's what New Game Plus is in a lot of games, but I'm saying more so, you know the content of the story during that first ever playthrough. Kind of rare. See, the reason I was looking so forward to The Last of Us Part 2 is because I seemingly sit in this very rare camp of people who really didn't like what Naughty Dog did outside of the original Last of Us. Like, I was not a fan of Uncharted. I like the original Jack series, but it's not like my favorite of the PlayStation 2. I really only loved The Last of Us. And so for me, knowing there was a sequel coming, I was ecstatic for that. And I still am looking forward to playing that. That's why the leaks are sort of disappointing on my end, because I'm sitting here going, man, like the one Naughty Dog game that I actually care about in these last number of years, and it got spoiled a ton. The nature of everything that's unfolded has been so unceremonious for what is one of the biggest games to close out this generation. I look back at 2013 when The Last of Us came out, and it just blew my socks off, and it was like, wow, we're really ending PS3's generation on such a strong note. And this doesn't mean that The Last of Us Part 2 will be bad in execution. Maybe we'll end up caring about certain things that happen. We'll see. I remain cautious yet open-minded to it. We'll see once I play it. But it's just so drastically different from the end of the PS3 generation. There's leaks abound. Naughty Dog seems to be, I put this in quotes by the way, crashing and burning, end quote. Well, I'm sure they'll do fine. I'm sure the game will do fine. I'm sure they'll find success critically and financially. It's just really crazy to see such a prestigious studio get tarnished. But it also goes to show no one's invincible in the games industry. We kind of learned that with Bethesda. We've seen that with like Konami, who used to be one of the top older developers, and now they're making like what, gotcha games and pinball machines or some crap. One way that all of us do suffer, in a manner of speaking, through this leak is whether you like the story or not. That's a completely separate discussion. It's really that now information is going to be controlled even tighter when it comes to talking about upcoming games, because this isn't just a Naughty Dog issue. We've seen various leaks happen. They're always going to continue to happen, but companies are going to lock down more. This naturally does affect the future of things like press events, previews for games, review copies, because companies don't want more information getting out. And while some may listen to that and think, well, you just care about review copies because you want to play the game early. No, stop. What I'm talking about is reviewers, whether it's myself or someone else, getting information out to the consumer about whether or not a product is worth your time. The grip around that type of stuff starts to become even tighter because already too much information is out there for Naughty Dog, and now it's going to be a stranglehold around this game. And if you don't think other companies are watching all this unfold, you're fooling yourself, and they're going to act accordingly with their game to avoid the same repercussions. In one way, maybe it will be a positive. We'll see other studios improve their work environment so that employees don't get so unhappy they leak possibly the entire game. But on one end, it does impact the consumer in yet another negative way, and I think there should be a light shined on that aspect of the discussion. But yeah, that's all I've got to say about The Last of Us Part 2. I would say fire away with your thoughts in the comments down below. Maybe you go in there, throw your thoughts in the comments, and then just go away as soon as possible. Or maybe you're like me, you've been spoiled, so you're like, we're taking the dive, let's go, let's have a conversation. Whatever you're comfortable with, go ahead, fire away, and I'll look forward to seeing you there. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below, along with my Patreon. Big thank you to all the patrons. We are nearing that record high. We have 195 patrons. We're so close to 200. Appreciate all you, though. This is wild times, and I just love that you guys have chosen my platform to support. So thank you guys so much, and we'll talk soon. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.